Have you ever had fantasies of saving a dying tribe? Of protecting them from encroaching civilization? Well, an opportunity has come up to turn that fantasy into reality. In 2 weeks, an untouched jungle in the Peruvian Amazon will be destroyed forever, and so will the natives inside it. Ancient tribes will be gone forever.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast review of The Green Inferno, a review chosen by Now Playing patron Sean Ray.
This is a good omen.
Hosted by Arnie.
Wake up. These people never really had a chance.
Stuart.
That's the kind of guy you gotta look out for.
And Jacob.
We should feed you to the natives.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
I think you're an idealist, Justin, and you have good intentions. But you're not ready for this.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Let's go before he sends a SWAT team.
Today we're discussing The Green Inferno, starring Lorenza Izzo, Ariel Levy, Daryl Sabara, Kirby Bliss Blanton, Sky Ferreira, and Richard Berge, directed by Eli Roth. This is the Now Playing co-host whose microphone is his gun, Arnie.
And Stuart. And this is the co-host who's 100% wrong and 100% whore, Jacob.
So welcome, listeners, to the second part of our cannibal movie retrospective, I guess we'll call it.
Is this the leftovers? Pull that hand out of the fridge, warm it up, time to eat.
Well, we are here because this movie was picked by one of our patrons, Sean Ray, who has picked several movies in the past, and he is here again to join us. Hello, Sean. Tell us why The Green Inferno.
Hi, Jacob. Hi, Arnie. Hi, Stuart. Thank you for having me back on, guys. Well, just, I've listened to a bunch of the one-off horror movies that you guys have reviewed in the past, April Fool's Day and New Year's Eve, all that stuff. I kind of ran out of retrospectives to listen to, so I was listening to a bunch of the one-offs, and I thought, well, you guys had your roots in horror movies, and I thought I'd bring out one of the masters of horror, and I'm laughing when I say that, Eli Roth, Green Inferno. This is probably the only, except for Thanksgiving, probably the only Roth film I would recommend. I didn't grow up watching horror movies, and I've kind of figured out that slashers are really kind of in two, not just slashers, but it's kind of in two different camps. Like you're either rooting for the victims or rooting for the killer. And I find myself more, in line with like the Halloweens or the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, that you're kind of rooting for the victim. And I watching Eli Roth's movies, he's kind of like in the other camp. But I guess finally he picked some people where I'm kind of like, from the get-go, ready to be eaten. These people are so annoying, and I can't wait for the tribe to dig into them.
It's kind of a hate watch then, or at least you enjoy the victimization of, social justice warriors? Or what are we calling the victims in this cannibal stew?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all know it. Let's be honest. If I have to be the only one that says it, we'll say it. We all have these people on, online where we see that. And, Eli Roth talked about this. He said he was kind of becoming aware of reactive activism, what he calls slacktivism, where, he saw people online who were outraged about some cause that, 24 hours prior to that, they knew nothing about. And people are just retweeting defensively because they don't want to look like they don't care. And so he wanted to make a movie about those people.
Ironically, he's going to promote Twitter on this.
A lot, yes. So, Sean, did you see this film when it was new, or did you catch it later?
No, I caught it later. I listened to Kevin Pollak used to have a podcast where he would interview filmmakers and just people he liked. And Eli Roth, what I think people like about Eli Roth and what I kind of like about him now that I've watched most of his films is he's so enthusiastic about horror movies. He's seen every horror movie, since, 1970 on, and he can just go into just great detail and great enthusiasm about his movies, about horror movies. And I think it just makes people like, oh, wow, this is going to be a great film. And then you wouldn't go and watch him. And it's just kind of like, That's how I kind of felt about all of his films until this. I mean, Cabin Fever, kind of a, again, what I talked about a second ago about, people that, we're just waiting to get eaten and hostile. It kind of felt like he wanted us to enjoy them getting cut up and stuff. And I kind of have fun with it now that I've seen more horror movies, but I guess this one just finally clicked for me, while the other ones, I'll stick to, The Shining or John Carpenter's The Thing and Halloween.
Yeah, I agree with you. And maybe that is why I, too, sort of have a very lukewarm, maybe even a cold reaction to Eli Roth. Cabin Fever and Hostel were two films that had a lot of hype, and I saw them when they came out, and I don't remember much about them. They didn't stay with me. It does feel like he largely exists to be cruel and to hurt his characters. You've got to be up for the torture porn aspect of it, or at least that's what it felt like to me. I was less into it, and I skipped this one. I didn't see this movie when it came out. It didn't help that it was associated to Cannibal Holocaust, a horror movie I had maybe even been avoiding but hadn't seen. So, yeah, this one totally went by me whenever it came out. What, about 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
And we talked about Eli Roth when we reviewed Thanksgiving last year. But just to recap, I would consider myself kind of a casual fan of his. I saw Cabin Fever when it was new in theaters. And unlike you, Stuart, that movie did stick with me. I will never forget my reaction to one of those scenes.
Yes.
I remember that scene. You're talking about that weird kid that did the backflips?
No, that scene too, but I was actually thinking of the fingering scene.
Oh, I don't know what you're referring to.
But yes, there is the pancakes kid who is funny as hell. So then I saw Hostel in theaters and enjoyed Hostel Part 2. Then I didn't pay attention to Eli Roth's career. I didn't hear of Aftershock until I was doing the Green Inferno. I hadn't heard of the Green Inferno until Sean Ray picked it. I did see Knock Knock and really enjoyed that one. I was just home alone on a Saturday wanting to watch something on iTunes, and I'm like, oh, a home invasion thriller with Keanu. I'll watch that.
So neither of you guys have seen this one before?
Nope.
No, I hadn't.
Okay, I did because we were doing Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to get more familiar with Eli Roth stuff, because I think I'd only seen Cabin Fever at that time, so I watched his two Hostel films. I watched this one as well, and so... yeah, I knew what we were going into. I had seen Cannibal Holocaust before as well, so I kind of knew what to expect. But yeah, I didn't see this in theaters. I wouldn't say I'm an Eli Roth fan now, but it was not a name that would get me to go see a film in a theater back then.
I don't know that anyone did. It only made about $12 million on a $5 million budget. I don't think it was considered a success. Maybe a break even.
I just love that it opened 9th at the box office. That cannot be considered a success by any metric. I mean, it was a cheap movie to make. It was only $5 million, so they probably came close to breaking even. This film had a troubled production. The company that actually was financing it was Worldview, and they made this film and had greenlit a sequel. They were already in pre-production on a sequel to this when Worldview went under, and this film almost ended up in Worldview's bankruptcy court. Blumhouse came out of the woodworks and bought the rights to this film, so it's really funny because when I think of the Green Inferno, you look at Wiki, it says it came out in 2013, but I'm listening to the commentary they did, and he's talking about making Knock Knock and making films that would come out after the fact, and it's because this film got tied up for so long.
Yeah, it didn't hit theaters until, 2015, I think?
Yeah. And again, briefly, a blip and you miss it. And, I get it. Horror movies, they're meant to have a visceral impact and then they go away. But yeah, there were no stars attached to it. It's a weird title. I don't even know how many people today know about Cannibal Holocaust. So it had a marketing challenge for sure. And I think that, Eli Roth was just kind of, I'll put it this way. I considered him a one-trick pony, and his trick was 10 years old at this point. So it didn't seem to have much cachet until, this came on our radar. So thank you, Sean, for bringing it back. And I do think that Eli Roth is having something of a resurgence. Thanksgiving was a hit, and I guess he's making a sequel to that. We just covered Borderland. So he's relevant again?
That's a prediction.
I think you heard me turn that into a question.
Well, this must have somewhat of a cult following. Shout Factory did do a special edition release of this on Blu-ray in 2019, so...
Uh-oh, how many commentary tracks did you have to listen to?
Only one, but it was totally useless.
That's par for the course.
It had so many people involved, they were all just reminiscing about the shoot instead of, really getting into the movie, and then the most painful thing was, a 1 hour making of behind the scenes footage, which I think replicates what it's like to be on the set, where you just spend 5 minutes watching makeup get applied to one of the people in the tribe and then have them talk about lighting for 10 minutes. It was really a waste of time.
I mean, Arnie, you got that Shout Factory disc. They had to have like multiple cuts of this, right? Like, I don't know. Was this ever edited down? Was this controversial?
Well, it got confusing because it does say it's the director's cut on the Blu-ray, but according to movie censorship, that's actually just a marketing ploy that Roth insisted on using, even though there's no longer version. It's the rated R MPAA version, and Roth is like, no, but this is the director's cut. Now, apparently, in Italy, they cut about 3 minutes out of this film, and so only in Italy is there a VM14 rated version.
Like for teenagers?
Yeah.
Italy, the home of modern cannibal films? This is too violent?
Right, yes. When we watched Cannibal Holocaust, they were very comfortable airing snuff on primetime television. 30 years later, we have to trim the splatter out of the splatter picture.
Yeah, it looks like everything is gone. It looks like Jonah's death is gone. You don't get to see the eyes plucked out.
What?
You don't get to see the close-up of the guy who walks into the propeller blades.
This is why you're watching this film. This feels like that My Bloody Valentine situation where Stuart and I watched a theatrical cut that had no deaths in it.
Right. I don't know why you would release it at all.
You're getting soft, Italy.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, we all saw the same cut. Arnie, what did we see? Give us the plot.
Justine, played by Lorenza Izzo, is a freshman at Columbia University in New York City. In one of her classes, Justine learns about female genital mutilation that occurs in places around the globe. Just an aside, that's a phrase I never thought I'd be using in a movie review podcast, female genital mutilation, but we'll be discussing it a lot tonight. Justine is appalled by this information and wants to get her father, a United Nations attorney, involved in stopping the practice. Justine's passion garners the attention of fellow student Jonah, played by Aaron Burns. Jonah is a member of an activist group, and he invites Justine to join. Justine is taken in by the charismatic group leader Alejandro, played by Ariel Levy. Alejandro has a plot for the group to fly to the Amazon rainforest to stop a group of developers from destroying a patch of land where a local native tribe resides. The group of activists go down there and chain themselves to trees and bulldozers, live streaming the workers and militia who consider shooting them. The group draws enough attention to the work that the development is shut down. But all is not what it seems. The entire protest was a scam funded by a local drug dealer. While the protest got one group of workers to pull out of the development, it was also a different company could come in and take up the contract. While flying back to New York, the group's airplane suffers an explosion and crashes into the forest. Several are killed in the crash, and the survivors are taken captive by a local cannibal tribe. The cannibals kill and eat Jonah. In the cage, Alejandro turns on the others, focused only on his own survival. He knows the new development company will be there in a few days, and if he can survive that long, he'll be rescued. Then the three women in the group, Justine and two others, are tested for virginity. When the tribe discovers Justine is a virgin, they prepare her to undergo a genital mutilation ceremony. While the tribe prepares for this, the hostages attempt several escapes. None are successful. One of the group members kills herself after finding out she'd eaten human remains fed to her by the tribe. Justine and some others attempt another escape, but Alejandro incapacitates one of the escapees because he doesn't want to be the only one left for the cannibals to eat. The escape is foiled and the other escapee is killed, and Justine is returned to the village for her ceremony. Justine befriends a young tribal girl. The little girl helps Justine to flee the village. Alejandro, the only other survivor, begs Justine to take him with her, but Justine leaves him behind in the cannibal's cage. Justine races to the clearing where the cannibal tribe has engaged in battle against the new construction company and its militia. Justine runs out with a broken phone and pretends to film the militia. The hired guns spare Justine's life and return her to the United States. Once back, Justine lies about what happened in the jungle. She claims everyone died in the crash, and the local tribe helped her until she was able to be rescued. Then, in a mid-credit scene, we hear Justine get a call from Alejandro's sister. A satellite has captured a photo of what appears to be Alejandro in the jungle, alive, as credits roll.
As we start, the Green Inferno was a term actually used in that 1980 movie. This isn't the same tribe, right? It may be the same area. This isn't quite a sequel or even a continuation of what Deodato did with Cannibal Holocaust. But obviously Eli Roth saw it, loved it, and is piggybacking on it in some way.
And I want to say, when I watched a few other cannibal films just for Cannibal Holocaust, there is a Green Inferno from like 1988 that I watched. Not very good, has all those same issues that every Italian cannibal film has. Lots of gross stuff, but yeah, that storyline, I wondered, oh, does it match this? No, this is just a brand new storyline he came up with.
Yeah, the two films he talked about endlessly in interviews around the time and in bonus features were Cannibal Holocaust and one called Cannibal Ferox. And as if I hadn't had enough cannibal films so far, I did go watch Cannibal Ferox to see its influences on this.
Ferox? What the hell is that?
I have no idea, and I've seen the movie.
Okay. I love seeing movies that I don't know what they're talking about.
Maybe it's some lost in translation thing with Italy, who knows?
Yeah, it is most of the same actors from Cannibal Holocaust, and more animal mutilation, and more cannibal eating.
Uh-huh. Been there, done that.
Yes, it was more of the same. I don't know why Eli Roth picked that one to name check for this.
That's one of the other big ones besides Cannibal Holocaust. That's all I know is that one gets name dropped a lot.
Yeah, so I went and saw that one as well. There is an eye gouging scene in that, so I thought that might have been part of the influence. But this is a standalone movie that pays homage to what's come before, but it's not a sequel, it's not even a requel, it's just another cannibal movie.
Yeah, there's like a little boy that's holding a little pig. I'm like, that's got to be a reference to Cannibal Holocaust.
They're the yayes. I think I've heard that term, yayes. They're painted red. We'll find out that that's blood, actually, but we don't know. It's a misdirect. When we see the father and son going around, they're like cutting off fruit. They give the indication that this is just, at the very least, omnivores, not headhunters, not cannibals. This is a victimized tribe who is now facing bulldozers coming into their rainforest. Of course, that would be a cause that New York University students would want to take up.
And it felt weird, like at the beginning of this movie, you get that big glossy Universal logo and everything. I'm like, this feels, after seeing that really grimy, cheap Cannibal Holocaust, like all these shots of the rainforest, like gorgeous looking.
Yeah, I gotta say, they did well with the cinematography here. I really liked the color. I really liked the vibrancy. Yeah, after spending so much time in 70s and early 80s grindhouse films, it was really nice to see a film that really had color pop again. And yeah, this opening scene, well, we talked about with Cannibal Holocaust, one of the things about the cannibal films is the white people always do something to piss off the tribe initially. In Ferox, it was killing people so that you could get emeralds. In Cannibal Holocaust, it was torturing them for the footage to fake a documentary. And here we see right from the beginning that people are bulldozing where the tribe is and just killing them without provocation. Not that I think these people weren't cannibals before this happened, because you don't just jump to cannibalism this quickly, but yes, this is the reason why I guess we root for the cannibals, is because this opening scene shows us peaceful tribe people, and then they just get gunned down. But you mentioned New York University students. One thing Eli Roth really was proud of, and I hadn't noticed it, but cannibal films often started in New York City, like Cannibal Holocaust did, and Cannibal Ferox, and then they'd go to the forest and then end in New York City, so he knew he had to film some outdoor scenes in New York, and we are introduced to Justine, played by Lorenza Izzo, who would become Eli Roth's wife shortly after this film.
Of course. Who wouldn't love a director that does this to you?
She is a virgin, apparently. That's going to be mind-blowing later on.
Yeah, New York University was where the second camera crew came out of to find the original documentarians in Cannibal Holocaust. So, again, it made me think that this was going to be some kind of sequel. I even had the misconception that this was found footage, that this movie would be entirely done by camera phones. And, you know, there's so much talk here is given about, well, live stream and shame people. I don't know why. Actually, I'm going to second what you guys said. I'm so relieved they didn't go that route. It's so nice to have a nicely photographed movie that works kind of like a travelogue, that doesn't make you feel nauseous the second you're looking at its underexposed, bled-colored, ugly palette. And yeah, just don't want to watch that scuzzy early 80s video look anymore.
And Justine is not a current activist. When I went to college, we called them cause heads. They would always find something in order to be riled up about. They are very perfectly parodied in the movie PCU that came out while I was in college. It felt like it was made about my college. But Justine is being woken up because there's students out on the lawn chanting because a janitor doesn't have health insurance. And so she and her roommate Casey are really just not involved yet with this.
And Casey's not going to be. The roommate makes it pretty clear when she pops up her head that they're ruining her Sunday morning, that she wants to sleep in, that activism for her is, an annoyance. And she has a lot of judgment when her friend looks like she might think about joining the hunger strike and not eat a bagel.
Yeah, and if this is filming, you said around 2012, because it did take a while to come out in theaters briefly, this would have been Occupy Wall Street going on, right? I think they dropped the 99% and the 1% with this janitor strike, which, you know what? They're college kids, yes, go explore politics and activism. I don't have a problem with them, having a hunger strike for their janitors to get health care.
Yeah, I want to jump on that and second it even more emphatically. It's good to care about social causes. We don't like social justice warriors because they're pious, not because they want social justice. Hopefully all of us want equality in this world. It's just that some people make other people feel lesser if they don't share their same intensity about said cause, which may even be questionable. It may even be an act of farce. This is really the problems of social media. I think more than anything is the way that people try to position themselves as perfect and then can't live up to that.
Yeah, and part of the reason we made fun of them on my campus is because they didn't have a specific cause that they stuck to. They would always jump from topic to topic. I mean, it was global warming. Yes, back in 1994, they were upset about global warming. And then they were upset about civil rights. Then it was gender equality.
All good things to be upset about.
Yeah, I think that's all fair game, as a young person particularly.
Yes, but they had complete focus on one thing, and then they'd move to another and forget about the global warming. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they were going for all things at all times. It felt more like a reason to hang out and party and an excuse for their party than it did an actual movement that could accomplish something.
And I think that's perfectly understandable as a young person when you're trying to find your identity. You do wear a lot of different outfits. You do try a different look every week. You are trying to find something authentic that you might shop around for the things you care about. Again, I'm not going to have a high judgment about that. I understand that is how young people are. And I think it's interesting we have our main character. I don't hate her. I do think it's easy to hate some of the people she's going to travel with. But for her, I think that she is what her roommate claims she hates. She is a girl who is getting involved for the wrong reasons. Basically, she thinks the boy is cute, right?
Yes.
He's got a long hair, he's got a guitar, and he seems sensitive and passionate, and maybe he'll be passionate about me. It's pretty clear when she keeps staring at that group that it's only one person, and it ain't the janitor that she's keeping her eye on.
And it's not Jonah, who's the one who approaches her after class. Of course, they do have a class where they explain female genital mutilation. Let's put it out there for the audience so that they know what this is in case they don't. I don't think it's brought up very much.
I had whole classes on this in college because I was a political science major, and yeah, we talked about this going on around the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is done for comedy's sake. Yes, I definitely think that if you had any kind of class about anthropology or studying cultures, yeah, female circumcision definitely came up. I definitely think that was something that would raise eyebrows. I don't think that many teachers would dramatically hold up the device used for said female circumcision. They kind of make her look absurd when she's learning this lesson here. But again, I think what sticks for this girl is the idea that she would go through a procedure to become a woman and never enjoy sex again. She's a virgin thinking about sexual activity, admiring a cute boy, and all of a sudden it's put forth the idea that someone could take that away and call her a woman for it.
I just find it to be lazy screenwriting that the thing she's learning about in class that day, that niche topic, is going to be what she's facing a couple days later in movie time. It's Chekhov's genital mutilation.
I kind of agree, Arnie, and it feels weird. It's like, no, this isn't just about cannibalism, but we're also going to bring up these, worldwide issues going on with women, too, with female genital mutilation and all of that. It's like an added thing that I did not expect in a cannibal film.
I like it. I think that it's appropriate. So much about horror is about violence towards women. It feels appropriate that this is, like many slashers, about sex. This is about a young virgin who's thinking about becoming promiscuous and seeing danger everywhere, that she's going to have to face her worst fear and be brought to it in part because she pursued this boy for the wrong reasons. To me, that feels like good writing. To me, that feels clever, a good way to set up the conflict. If this were all about Alejandro and his folly to go down south, I don't think I would care nearly as much. I think I would be kind of like Sean, just sitting back and waiting for the bowling pins to fall. It's more interesting that I do kind of like our final girl, and I do think she's got an interesting hang-up as she's getting involved with this group. I mean, she definitely has some judgments about them. She gets kicked out of one meeting because she does kind of call them out as posers.
I do think Eli Roth makes it obvious what his politics or what he thinks of these protesters are when their motto is don't think, act. I get the joke. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, and I just feel like Justine is portrayed properly as a naive college student. I mean, she hears about female genital mutilation for the first time and immediately thinks, oh, my father can fix this instantly. And, the teacher has to kind of roll her eyes and say it would take all the lawyers in the UN and that sort of thing. And then immediately she gets pulled into this group because of her stance on the female genital mutilation. She gets the eye of Jonah, and Jonah invites her to this group, and yeah, she does get kicked out immediately. But Jonah begs her to go back. She won't. It's not until she gets one-on-one with Alejandro, who, again, yes, she obviously is crushing on him, even though he has a girlfriend who's in the group, and Alejandro invites her back in after finding out that her father is a UN lawyer.
Sure. And I also think that he's just guilty of something the kids call today negging, right? You want a girl to like you and chase you, you just belittle her, and she can't get enough. She falls victim to that. Like, he treats her bad pretty much from the start of this movie to the end, and it just makes her want to prove, like that she gets involved in this in some ways. I do think she does care about female genital mutilation because, again, women are being impacted. It's personal to her, and she's thinking specifically about being robbed of the pleasure of sex. I think it's a cause that she would care about, but the reason why she gets on a plane is to prove to him that she can be as passionate as he is. And he's got a girlfriend that definitely is giving a lot of stink eye. I like the fact that this is, again, you talk about young people being more narcissistic, pretend in their politics. This feels like a love triangle that just happens to be playing out on an international stage.
Yeah, and it's not just a triangle. You called out Jonah. He's always there trying to hit on her, trying to get that seat next to her on the plane. He's going to be called out as the fat guy in love.
Nothing sadder, they say, and that was funny.
If you're setting up a slasher movie, and I assume Eli Roth at the helm, that's what we're going to be getting, it's a pretty clever way of bringing us into characters. That's a hard trick to do anymore. If we've seen as many slasher movies as we have, we usually want to just get to the blood. And I will just say, it's 40 minutes before we get to the blood. And I don't mind because I like this setup. That's what I would say. I think that it's more interesting than most the reasons why this girl is being pulled into this activist group and being talked into something that does sound very dangerous, that her father, her roommate, that everyone is telling her don't do. But he's just so cute, right? And she's got to prove to him that she's worthy.
You like this setup a lot better than I do, I'll say that, from hearing you talk. I do wish that they weren't spending quite so much time on this love quadrangle or love square, because as you mentioned, Jacob, there's 4 points to it. And I wish that I didn't feel like they were setting up the dominoes. These characters seem so foolish and in many cases so pathetic that I feel like they're just walking into death when they're going to Peru, and really only Alejandro knows what's going on. They seem pretty dumb, and, you know, this was kind of the setup for Hostel, too. Some dumb Americans go abroad and aren't prepared for their trip and end up staying in a hostel, and bad things happen. Here, I see this same kind of pattern playing out. It's just taking longer to do it.
You think Justine is dumb?
I think they're all stupid for going to Peru like this, yeah.
I'll say this, I think they are very ill-prepared because when they learn what the plan is, like, we have some hackers, they're going to stream your phones, and these guys are going to have guns, and they're going to be maybe shooting you, and we're just going to film them, and hopefully they'll stop because they're on film. Like that, I hear that plan, I'm like, nah, I'll stick with the hunger protest on campus.
Yeah, and she wasn't even political. Again, I think you have to give Justine this. She cares about this issue because it is about her genitalia. If men were around the world having their balls cut off, I think that we would be invading countries. I do think that we would be more active. The fact that it is a marginalized female identity is the reason why that this practice can be so prevalent. And again, I get her passion for it. I don't belittle her for caring so much about what is upsetting to think about, particularly at this time in her development.
But you say she cares so much about the genital mutilation issue, which I agree, but that's not what's happening in Peru. They go down to Peru for a totally different cause, much like, again, those people I mentioned knowing in college, and she's here because of Alejandro. She's not here because she believes specifically in this cause.
Yeah, she got negged. Yeah, I mean, you're familiar with this, right? If I'm just negative enough to you.
Yeah, I know negging. I saw Kingsman.
Yeah, well, I don't even associate it with that, but I'm just saying, I definitely feel like she fell into a trap here. Let me put it this way. I wouldn't be on board with this movie as much as I am if I hated her. If I thought that she was just as worthy of death as every other stooge on this plane.
I 100% agree with you, Stuart, because she is the one that's going to make me want, at least for her to get free. Like, I think with the slasher, part of the fun is they die. If it was Casey, I want Casey, her roommate, to die, like, right away. Like, maybe she's more realistic, but she is so cynical. Yeah, Justine may be a little naive, but I feel like she's pure in her intent, even if it is partly to get a guy.
The one who I like in this group as we're setting them up is Lars. He's an actor who I've recognized. Daryl Sabara, he was in the Spy Kids movies. He was the Spy Kid, and he was in Rob Zombie's Halloween as the bully. You know, he's an actor who's worked in a lot of stuff. He's a familiar-looking face to me, and yeah, being the stoner, he was kind of the one who I attached to most in this group.
Yeah, and we find out pretty quickly, like, things are not on the up and up because Lars is going to be excited to meet Carlos, the sponsor for this trip, who is apparently also a Peruvian drug lord and able to get him that sweet Peruvian weed.
No, here's the thing. You mentioned Hostel, and I thought I was really ahead of this movie. I thought Alejandro looked dangerous. She seemed to have a blind side to it. I thought the roommate was right not to trust him, that he looked creepy. And then when we meet this Carlos guy and they're talking about what they're going to do in all of this, exchanging money, and yeah, he can get them pot in all of this. I think I'm wrong, but I make the leap that just as in Hostel, a bunch of Americans were led to a place where they would be killed for sport, that this was a sting, that Alejandro went to different college campuses and found the most passionate activists and then took them to this jungle to be eaten by his tribe. I assumed he would be one of them. So this really threw me for a loop, and maybe why I didn't, mind that we're, again, having a leisurely act one, that they're spending so much time setting up Carlos and this rather silly protest live stream.
Yeah, and he does have nefarious plans. I will say, I watched this movie twice for this review. I watched the movie, then did all the bonus features, then watched the movie again, and the languid pace bothered me more the first time than the second time. The second time I watched this movie, I was enjoying some of the small details a little bit more. Like when they're getting ready to go and chain themselves to the bulldozers and things, I noticed a lot of little things that I didn't catch the first time. Like they're all getting their chains and their locks, and Kara, Alejandro's girlfriend, takes Justine's lock away and says, "No, I've got this," and gives her a different lock. And it turns out the lock she gave Justine was broken, and they were setting her up so that Justine would have a gun to her head here. A lot of the little detail work here is nice, and you are setting up villainous people who we do want to see get it from the cannibals.
I mean, even before that, they are teasing us with maybe some violence. Lars has got to go to the bathroom and get scared of a tarantula that might bite his dick off.
I did not need to see the base of the Spy Kid's dick.
I think you do. I mean, honestly, in a movie like this, that is what you come here for.
They don't cut any dicks off in this, like happens in all those Italian cannibal films.
Yeah, you come to these movies to be shocked by everything, right? Including you want to have visuals you don't normally see. It's weird that he doesn't bite the dick off. I'll just put it that way. I was prepared for him to die even before they got there. And the fact that he comes back unscathed, relatively speaking, maybe emotionally scarred, but nothing missing, was, again, kind of a surprise, because I definitely think that you would be picking off this cast by this point in time.
But Eli Roth, if he's trying to push the envelope by showing a flaccid penis on screen and things, this movie is neutered compared to the cannibal films of old. This movie is safe. This movie is a safe space. This movie is got kid gloves on compared to all the other cannibal movies that we've watched. So I really don't think that this helps push the envelope any more than if we didn't see the dick.
I would say, first of all, I'm grateful to be in the safe space. I don't want to watch another movie like Cannibal Holocaust ever again. Thank you very much. But that's not for me. I don't want to watch real murder. The violence in this movie, however outrageous, will never approach watching a monkey get his head chopped off in real time. That is an entirely different experience that I don't expect Eli Roth to be able to replicate, and I'm grateful that he does not. He would not have gotten a distribution at any American theater if he was actually hacking off the heads of monkeys.
Yeah, there's a real jaguar in this film, but no animals, real or fake, get harmed.
No. I mean, there's going to be ants later on. No CGI ants get hurt. This movie plays it so safe.
You say that with disdain.
If you're going to try to pay homage to the cannibal films of old, you need to push boundaries. And I don't feel like Eli Roth pushes boundaries as much as I think he thinks he is.
I'm good with animals not being hurt, real or fake. That's something I could have done without in Cannibal Holocaust.
I agree with you. I don't want to watch it. It was so gross to me to go watch Cannibal Ferox and see yet another turtle slaughtered. It was just like, no, I'm so sick by watching all of this again and again in these cannibal movies. But, you know, John Wick killed a dog. You don't kill a real dog, but I think this movie could have gone there with some fake violence to try to simulate the disgust that people got back in the 80s.
It would never be the same thing. No matter how realistic, there's something protective about the movie experience when we know that it's a mirage, when it's an illusion, when we know that there's special effects artists and computer graphic artists that are causing the images we're seeing.
Yeah, like I said, seeing that shiny Universal logo at the beginning, sets a totally different tone for a cannibal film for me.
Which is, to circle back around, why I didn't need to see the Spy Kid's dick. It did not make this movie edgy.
Well, it's edgier than some. It's edgier than Spy Kids. I mean, I think if you grew up with that as your hero, then it probably is surprising to see him in this kind of circumstance. I think what I might be saying is we're a little old for this. It's hard to shock us the way it might be someone that grew up on Spy Kids. But I appreciate that Eli Roth is doing a studied recreation of something that I don't want to return to and trying to find the more commercial, entertaining picture within it. And again, to have that exploration of the horror movie in general, what they're about, that they're about sex and our predatory fears about what happens when we lose our virginity. I like that as the main tension here. I like the fact that, yes, the girlfriend basically tries to kill Justine, and it almost works. Because she can't lock herself to the construction equipment, the militia can grab her, a mercenary can put a gun to her head, and they're very lucky that they're intimidated by cell phones.
Well, this was all the plan, though, right? They knew her father was in the UN, and so that's the best hostage to have, someone that actually has ties to the government.
Yeah, but I think Kara was a little bit too antagonistic with the guy.
Yeah, she wanted him to shoot her.
Yeah, shoot her and see what happens. It's like, I think she really does want that love triangle to end with a bullet.
Absolutely. And again, that helps us enjoy when she becomes the first victim in about 5 minutes. For, knock her out of the equation, please. It's good. It's good in slasher movies to have clear-cut villains. And then it's also good to have characters that are a little bit more nuanced. And again, I think they're doing a good job of having jokey, silly people we want to see die, and a lead actress that I think has got a compelling situation going on.
I will give Justine this. I think she's charismatic. I think she's a good actress. She would be in Knock Knock later on, and I saw her in that. She's done some other stuff I've seen too, but not very memorable roles in it. I think everyone was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, weren't they?
She is the girlfriend that Leo marries, I think, late in the film. If you remember, he comes back from Italy with a bride.
And we talked about her in Confess Fletch, too. I do remember her from that. I think she's good in this. I like her character, and I do believe her. She's not overplaying it when there's a gun to her head and she's panicking and all of that. I think she's playing it just right.
And again, I'm with her when they're on the plane ride home and everyone's like looking at our streaming numbers and she's like, I hate all of you. This was a huge mistake. This is a photo op. All you can see is the celebrity of all of this, and nobody cares anything for my feelings or the fact that I was victimized.
Jonah cares.
Yeah, Jonah always cares. But the way she's just grimacing at Alejandro is great. She is so pissed at him.
Yeah, it's almost her will. I feel like she looks out at that forest and it's almost like she wills this plane to crash and to put all these people in harm's way.
And what a great plane crash for a low-budget movie. I have to say, I could tell these people were really being spun when Jonah throws up and the vomit goes up his face. I mean, that was not CGI. You knew these people were upside down. Their hair was hanging. They're all screaming. The tail flies off and people are sucked out the back of the plane. This is the high point of the movie for me right here. This is the most exciting scene.
I was totally shocked by it. I will say, again, I was prepared for Alejandro and Carlos to step away and have the cannibals get them. So it was kind of funny that, after all of this production, going down river and spiders and jaguars and all that they do, to go and have 3 seconds on film and then they're heading back home. How anticlimactic, how silly this whole enterprise is. I love the fact that they're going to get a comeuppance. I didn't predict that. But it's so, I think Carlos is the very first one to die. He flies out of the plane. They find him impaled on the ground.
Yeah, I love the chaos when that plane finally crashes. I didn't get all their names, but someone's looking for Brooke. I think she's impaled up on a tree. And then the guy looking for her gets his scalped by the propeller, which I was not expecting.
Walking into that's there was a horrible story. I can't remember who it was. Someone in the media walked into an airplane propeller getting off a plane and had to have facial reconstruction surgery. This is worse. There's no reconstructing from this, but it is a fear of mine. I don't know. That's something phobic almost about the idea that when you get out of small charter planes that propellers are so close to you.
And then the natives come in and start taking them out. Kara, she's going to get shot right through the neck.
This is the shot I knew from the movie before I even saw the movie, was all the hands that are going to reach up and grope them and fondle their hair. Just so many hands, so many natives are in this film. It really did best all the other cannibal movies where there were, a handful of tribespeople, a handful of cannibals, maybe 15. Here, this looks like hundreds of people. And I know what movie I'm in, but the people in the movie don't know what kind of movie they're in. They're being carried away. Jonah is not doing very well. They were all shot with these knockout darts that work virtually instantly. It's like a taser. These darts hit and they pass out. They wake up, they're being taken to a cage, but Jonah doesn't wake up so well. And so here we're going to get the scene of the movie, right? The airplane I thought was the most exciting, but this is the scene. If you come for Eli Roth, torture porn, gore, this is the scene you're coming for.
Unless you're watching it in Italy. I will say, I had this thought as I was watching this, because we did do Cannibal Holocaust, and you talk about exploitation and portraying the natives as savages and that. I do feel like, in a strange way, this does feel more Hollywood and dress up, like this, I just call them witch doctors, this woman with like blind in one eye, and then this other guy all painted up with these tusks. It does feel more like what you'd see on the Disney's Jungle Cruise in some ways. I don't know, there was a harsh faux realism to those Cannibal Holocaust films, those 70s and 80s ones, because they were so raw. This one, it feels more dress up.
I agree with that. And I almost see this as a projection, as a fantasy in some weird way. It's the story of a girl that's trying to process culture far off that would hurt women. But this is a female-run tribe, right? Am I correct in saying that there's a high priestess at the center of this, that the woman that's cutting him up and sanctioning all of this is the boss? So in some ways, all the bad things that are happening are female driven.
Yeah, there's the high priestess, and then there's the headhunter, is what Eli Roth called the guy who's painted all black. So the headhunter, he's one of the people in charge, but he's not the leader.
He's taking orders from that woman.
Yeah.
Think about Cannibal Holocaust, and we saw a lot of terrible things happen to women. A lot of terrible things happen to everything. But specifically, it seemed to be a patriarchal tribe that would, for reasons, string up a pregnant woman and kill her baby, or, blame adultery entirely on the woman and execute her. And here, I think it's important that, what is being done is being sanctioned by a high priestess. Maybe Justine wanted Jonah to go away. I know she wasn't into him, but did she hate him? Did she find him clingy? Did she resent him? Would she want him chopped up in this way?
Yeah, I was hoping Jonah would stick around a little bit longer. He was a sweet guy. He was looking out for Justine. And the fact that he gets he is the big one. So I guess that's why they go for him first. He's the biggest meal. And it is such a gruesome death scene that goes on so long, like ripping out the eyes, eating them, hacking off each limb, hacking off the head, preparing the torso, sticking it in the smoker.
Yeah, it is quite the death. Now, I have the phobia when it comes to things with eyes, and they're going to dig out his eyeballs. Didn't bother me in the least, because when I watched this the first time, I'm like, what did I see? It is such an extreme close-up. Now, I consider Hostel the king of all eye movies. If you've seen that film, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But that has a scene that had me squirming in my chair in theaters. And here, I'm like, what just happened? I had to back it up, make sure that was an eyeball being plucked out. It's just, they have really good makeup effects here. I'm not dinging the movie, but I feel like that shot was done in such a close-up, and then you never really see the eyeball in her hand before she eats it.
That's how you get around the MPAA, I think.
Yeah, it really didn't bother me, and that kind of thing normally would. I consider that a flaw of the way this was filmed and edited.
Yeah, maybe if I like torture porn, I would be splitting these hairs. I didn't really like Hostel. I don't even remember the scene you're talking about. I just remember feeling like it didn't make good on the premise that it had. I was really into it, and then once the killing started, I thought it got boring.
I will be on my deathbed and saying, remember the eyeball in Hostel? It scarred me that much.
Okay, and I don't doubt it. I'm not claiming that it wasn't impactful for some viewers. It just, 20 years later, I don't remember the film. And maybe that'll be true for this movie, but I do feel like what's interesting about it is that we see the relationship between Alejandro and Justine sort of still playing out. Their others are dead, right? Cara got killed back at the plane crash. And yes, this fat guy that really never had a chance with Justine is totally out of the picture now. And we have Alejandro basically saying, I'm with biogas. We find out that in fact, all of this was just money under the table. He didn't really think they were going to have any impact. It was a stunt to get views and likes and maybe raise money. And so he's kind of team industrialization. He's with the militiamen that are ripping up the rainforest. It kind of will be put against her. I think we'll see by the end of it, she's team Yahes.
And I'll say this about Alejandro, look, he's easy to hate. But as far as his methods go, again, kind of pragmatic and a realist. There's natural resources there. People are coming for it no matter what. I don't know if he's actually sincere in his movement and getting that noticed and bigger and he's actually going to do something with that. But if so, this is how the real world works. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's what he says.
But Alejandro is this Machiavellian guy who's literally going to sabotage the others so he has a chance to live longer. So anything that comes out of his mouth is pretty much suspect. You shouldn't agree with him because he's going to be shown to be so evil and crazy.
I am agreeing that we will rape the earth to get natural resources. You cannot stop that. It is inevitable.
Yeah, and it goes back to that old joke, too, about guys running from a leopard or whatever. And I don't have to be faster than the leopard. I just have to be faster than you. So, yeah, his strategy is, I want to live. I understand what that means. And that just means I have to be less appetizing than all the other people around me. So he's hoping the fat guy will sustain them for the 3 days he thinks it will take for biogas to regroup and tear into the rainforest and rescue him. And I think if they were able to play with this more, the middle of this movie would be more intellectually interesting. It ends up just being a torture porn movie and a pretty good one. But I do feel like Alejandro, because he's made so evil and so clear-cut so early, there's nowhere dramatically for him or Justine to go for the rest of the movie.
And it feels like there's really nothing this group can do about their situation because it's going to get called out that they're believed to be construction workers. It's mistaken identity. Would the tribe treat them this way if they knew they weren't part of those miners coming in to get the gas and everything? Who knows? But I thought you could try to convince them, try to communicate. I guess we'll get some flute scenes where they try to communicate. That's it.
Yeah, and this movie's going to go for gross out in all the different ways. There's going to be Jonah's death, and then we get this girl, Amy, who earlier she was shown being bitten by bugs and talking about how she got the vaccine shots needed before the trip, but she still got some kind of stomach illness. So they're going to throw in a diarrhea gross out moment as she has to go to the side of the cage and relieve herself, which is truthfully the most disturbing thought for me the whole time is how do you wipe? You're just going to be really smelly and chafed.
No, and I just feel like this is Eli Roth's sense of humor. This is supposed to be funny, having to shit in front of everyone, and it smells and the sound effects he uses. I could see the horror in it, in real life, but the way he plays it feels very juvenile.
Yeah, I guess that's my struggle with Eli Roth, is that I usually find that he has something interesting in his storylines, and then they just devolve into, pranks and being punked and gross out humor that he just doesn't take his plots to the next level. And Thanksgiving, I think, is his most interesting movie because it had the most characters, the most going on. It had the most meat on its bones, if you will. Here, yes, there's a relatively small cast in a cage with pigs, and now it's just about watching them die in semi-creative fashion. But what is going on with the flute? You bring up the flute, and I'm trying to find out, is this a metaphor for something?
There was this whole speech when Justine met with her dad. I'm guessing the mom is dead by the way they were talking, and Justine used to play the flute, and something of the mom's, some silver she owned was made into this tiny flute necklace.
Grandma.
Oh, it was grandma? Okay.
Yeah, so maybe is she Jewish? Are they implying that this was some kind of heirloom, Holocaust?
Yeah, because Casey makes a joke about Jews earlier too, and she's like, it's okay, I'm Jewish. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, is she the same ethnicity?
But what are they I guess what I'm saying is, what are they really getting at here? Is it a phallic symbol that the mother and, we have a virgin that can master the flute? And
sometimes a flute is just a flute.
But it's not. It is definitely not when someone is deconstructing horror movies after so many years of slasher films. You're smart enough to know that these things are symbolic, and you use them for particular effect.
And Arnie, you said in your summary she's going to use it on a girl. I thought it was a boy in the tribe, and it was like a way of creating some affection between them so he would help her. But you're saying that was a girl. I missed that.
Yeah, that was a little girl.
I didn't get that either, but it helps support the idea that this is a tribe empowering women. That in some ways, the reason why the final girl gets away is because, a little girl sees kinship with her. A pre-sexual little girl at that. But okay, we can talk about the splatter because that's all there really is to talk about in the middle of the movie. And it's pretty good. I mean, if you just want that, if that's why you're here, I hate people, these people deserve to die, and I want to see them Romero style ripped limb for limb. The Spy Kid really does. It feels like a Day of the Dead moment when he gets it.
Yeah, but, he's one of the last to get it. I mean, the only scene that impacts me after the diarrhea scene is what comes virtually right after that. The next day, the 3 surviving women are taken out and tested by that high priestess. And when I'm watching this the first time, I'm like, what exactly is going on? She has a claw. She's reaching between the legs.
I thought she was feeling the genitals for that part they cut off.
Well, I was afraid she was cutting it off. And then when she doesn't do it, it takes you a beat to realize that it was just a virginity test. Did a hymen break?
I didn't realize. When she gets to Justine and Justine is bleeding, I'm like, okay, so Justine's on her period. What's going on?
No, I took it like she broke the hymen. I'm like, okay, did they set her up as a virgin? I don't know. I feel like you have college-age kids, you got to set up their virgins, because I'm assuming otherwise.
I agree. I honestly had to pause the movie and go to the Wikipedia plot summary, because I'm like, I don't know what just happened. I don't know what I just saw. I thought she was on her period, but I'm not sure. And then they smeared the blood on her forehead. But this movie is piss poor at telling me what I'm supposed to be seeing here. I don't want to see it more graphically, but I want an explanation so I know what's happening on screen, and I did not.
Yeah, I think the fix of this is that you have a scene between Alejandro and Justine, where he wants to have sex. We'll see later he's going to masturbate because
it's an Eli Roth movie.
But I also think that there's, a sexual release. It gets rid of tension, right? So, he wants to sleep with her. If she had pushed him off and said, this is my first time, we would really understand, I think, more clearly what, is sort of very tentatively conveyed, but is there in the subtext.
And I think the unspoken situation going on here, because when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, good to not be a virgin, because they're going to do this ceremony. I'm like, they talk so much about female genital mutilation. That's got to be what they're doing. But then it also clicked, and I want to say, thank God, no rape in this. But I'm like, that's what's going to happen to her because she is the virgin she's going to be used to, breed with.
Yeah, it's plenty old dark.
How much do you want that verbalized in the film? I don't know. I'm kind of good with how they leave it.
I just want to understand the storyline that's going on. It's going to be very important, and yet it's just, if I hadn't read the Wikipedia article, I wouldn't have known what was happening in the film. And it is weird that it's being a virgin that targets her. The other 2 are safe because they weren't virgins.
Well, they're going to be food, I think.
Yeah, exactly. We have one slip away, make it to a boat, you think she's okay, and then little kids are putting on her tattoos. And Amy realizes that the bull that she's eating is her girlfriend.
And that is a pretty gruesome scene, the way she just quickly smashes that bowl and cuts that throat. I don't think it would go that easy in real life, but it's a shock.
Yeah, again, Eli Roth knows how to do this. I never doubt his ability to do the gross out. And I think it works in a very juvenile comedy kind of way. I'm a little old for it at this point, but I think that if you were watching for the splatter and the gross out bits, I hear, Arnie, you say it's not edgy enough, but it's edgier than many horror movies of the last 10 years.
It just feels like it's trying to be edgier, but yet afraid of the ledge. Like it wants to look like an edgelord, but is keeping a safe distance at the same time.
I mean, it still looks like an edgelord to me. Maybe that's just because it's Eli Roth, but I feel like he's doing everything he can that the MPAA will allow him to do.
Yeah, but if you're making a cannibal film, I want more than the MPAA will allow, even if it's just on the director's cut. In the end, though, the thing that pisses me off the most isn't that he's not pushing the envelope. It's that I find the story incoherent. I don't understand what I'm seeing on the screen, And that's a major narrative problem.
I mean, you say that, but I mean, you get that they're just being fondled, right? And, what was going on in Cannibal Holocaust? People were violated. Their boundaries were crossed. Their bodies were mutilated. She did something with a claw to 3 women. It feels icky and gross, and I don't know that knowing anything more changes anything other than maybe your empathy for Justine and her specific issue. Again, that the storyline you say you don't like, that this is about her confronting the idea of having sexual pleasure taken from her.
Well, it's really more her life, because as Daniel will say, she's more than likely going to die from the process, either from blood loss or infection. There's a lot more at stake than just sexual gratification here.
No, but I mean, the metaphor, come on. I mean, yes, Friday the 13th, the teenagers were dying, but the subtext is all about they're loose with morals and good girl isn't, and she'll die if she emulates them. I mean, again, that's the projection. That is the deconstruction that Eli Roth understands about the slasher movie that he's having play out in a new socially conscious way. He's not Ari Aster. I mean, I guess what I can say is there are people that work in the horror genre that truly can still shock me. Hereditary, Midsommar, they do it because it's psychological. And I think my struggle with Eli Roth is it's always scatological. It's always just about toilet humor. It's only going to get so far under my skin.
Case in point, after Samantha cuts her throat, look, it is very juvenile, but Eli Roth, sometimes you do get me with your jokes. They're going to stuff her with that Peruvian weed to get the entire tribe high. And I don't know, it's a joke that works for me. And then they tag it with some munchies with Lars getting eaten up. I'm like, solid joke.
That is the one time I felt ahead of this film, is when they are putting the weed in there. I'm like, you don't want cannibals with the munchies. But apparently that was the entire pitch for this movie before Eli Roth made it. He was talking to another filmmaker and said, I have an idea about cannibals who get high and get the munchies. And the other guy's like, oh, you have to make that film.
Sold. I would fund that.
And yeah, I like the throat slashing death. I like that reveal that she ate her girlfriend and then just kills herself. And then, yeah, the kids playing with the tattoos, pasting it on their own skin like kids do with those temporary tattoos. I thought that was kind of a fun death. But yeah, when they get stoned and decide that they just are going to eat Lars alive, that was a good scene. That was really zombie.
The little girl running away with the leg.
The tribespeople who played in this movie, and they were really tribespeople out in Peru. They had never heard of a movie before. They had to be shown a movie to know what it was. They showed them Cannibal Holocaust as their first movie. And they thought it was a comedy, and we're like, yes, we'll love to do this. But I think that they play really well as stoned. I like the headhunter when he's playing with that dead arm hanging from a hook and poking at it with the stick and things. It is a laugh out loud release scene after all the things we've seen that have been so awful.
Yeah, but this is all laugh out loud. I mean, all of this has a comedic, again, scatological. I mean, you're laughing at being grossed out, as opposed to truly psychologically disturbed.
Yeah, seeing bodies get cut up here, I don't know, maybe it feels a little bit more plastic than Cannibal Holocaust, but that wasn't really a scary movie either. It's about grossing you out. Like, can we show you a skeleton with bugs crawling all over it?
Yeah, that's its own thing. We've had that review, but something that I do want to circle back on, Alejandro, again, he could be running off with them. And instead, he made the choice to keep Lars as the one that they would kill. What was that about? Why didn't he leave the cage with the rest of them? There was nothing binding him there, right?
I wouldn't have a whole lot of faith in running away. Maybe that's the best option, but I wouldn't have a whole lot of faith in that either. And as Machiavellian as he is, like, I'll keep another body behind so they could eat that and give me another day so that second corporation could arrive and free me.
I think he's snapped. I think he's gone a little insane with that masturbation scene. He went from Machiavellian to just plain nuts.
I don't even understand that scene.
I mean, again, you're overthinking it. I mean, don't you ever whack off when you get stressed?
Not around people.
Well, agreed, admittedly, but what else can you do?
I mean, not whack off.
Yes, I suppose if you want to keep social decorum, you save that for when everyone's asleep. But my point really is yes, he is siding, he has put his faith. He's a man that claims that he hated biogas, but he's put his faith in them. And that is why he's truly the contemptible person. I wish there was just more between him and Justine in these moments. I wish that they could have flirted with the idea that she could love him, that he could run away with her, and then they end up revealing who they are. But this movie, it sort of told us early on that he was a bad guy and given us no evidence to question that. So it's just not as much of a fun back and forth as it could be.
Yeah, never do I feel like there's going to be a love scene or any romantic tension between the two of them because he is so awful almost right from the beginning.
No, yeah, there's this other guy, Daniel, we haven't even really talked about, but he's the one with GPS. He's the one that believes, and Justine believes, can get them back to safety if only they can find it. And they have some mildly diverting adventure here where she almost gets sucked away in the rapids and they go combing through the plane crash.
I don't understand. Like, all of this is set up so they could get a cell phone because they're all going to end up back where they started. Again, just pacing issues. 100 minutes for a cannibal film. Like, I feel like you get straight to the point. I don't know why she has to get swept downriver. It doesn't matter. It plays no part in the plot. They still end up in the exact same spot, whether that happens or not.
And it's just a really good sight gag when she, like, he jumps in the water, is wading away. She jumps in the water and completely disappears and pops up like half a mile downstream. The problem is you can feel the limitations. It looks good for a $5 million movie, but you'd want this to have some kind of like Apocalypse Now kind of action, and that it can't do.
Yeah, you got to have a snake or a crocodile or something in that water.
Yeah, I get what they're going for here, but it feels kind of half-assed. And again, not the point. Again, we know that Justine, frankly, has to get back and face off with the High Priestess and the cannibals and all of that. So, yeah, this is just filler.
But I don't understand, except for the fact that no two people are going to die the same way in this movie. I don't understand why the cannibals decide to feed Daniel to ants instead of themselves.
Maybe that's a delicacy. It looks like a delicious green slime that they slather him in. And maybe the ants provide a crunchy, who knows what. I haven't eaten a human being, so I don't know if ants make you better.
Apparently, these ants are supposed to be real ants. They don't look like real ants.
It's like those ones from Crystal Skull, right?
They look better than that.
No, they really don't. At no point do I think these ants are real. Just pour ants on the guy. I mean, come on.
You can't hurt the real ants, though.
But get the ant wrangler to pour ants on the guy. It'll look better. But apparently these ants, and Eli Roth said in the commentary, he didn't set this up well. These ants supposedly have the most painful bite of any animal on Earth. Each bite hurts like a bullet wound and will stay that way for a week. But they aren't set up much like the other problems I had in this movie. You're not really sure why these ants hurt this bad, because if you've had an ant bite, you're not screaming the way Daniel is. You got to know about these special ants if you're going to do this death.
As a side note, there is a YouTube channel where a dude just gets bit by all these like really super painful bugs, and he's probably done these ants before to test it out. It doesn't sound like fun to me, but I agree with you, Arnie. This feels like, okay, what is the novel death we have this time? And yeah, we'll bring in insects or something. I do feel like you got to eat everyone. You're cannibals. You need that meat.
I mean, I think maybe some of this is spiders are a universal scary. Ants, maybe if you live in the South and you've ever been bit by fire ants, you know the pain of it. But they don't have the same creep factor that certain bugs do. And so it's not the worst thing I can imagine. And you add the extra layer of it's obviously CGI work. It just doesn't feel like a particularly impactful death. But what is impactful about it is he asked to die. Justine can't do it, but the child that's helping her escape, blows cocaine in his face and does it without blinking.
Yeah, because while he was being eaten by ants, Justine is prepared for the ceremony. They give her a rock and paint job. I mean, this would be great if you're in a glam metal band. The white paint with the red stripe across the eyes.
Yeah, just visually it looks great.
Yeah, it's just really sharp looking, and the little girl helps Justine escape because it's happenstance. The High Priestess is just about to do the female circumcision when somebody comes running into the village with the head of a construction worker. and that distracts them all as they are going to battle against the construction worker and the militia, which buys Justine a little bit of time.
And I want to say that build up to will she or won't she get her genitals mutilated, I think there's some good tension there. I am tense, and because it is Eli Roth, I know he's willing to push it more than others. I know you feel this one's a little bit tame, Arnie, but I'm like, will he do it? Will he push it to where, like, everyone is scarred? Even if she does live, like, this awful thing happens to her. But no, it pulls away, but I'm sucked into that moment, really wondering if it will happen.
I think you want to bring Alejandro into that moment, too, though. Again, it is about them having sex. That is supposedly the tension, so that he's remains caged, and now, ironically, is asking for her rescue, now that the people that he's been waiting for are finally arriving, and I guess losing, in his perception. If they're bringing severed heads, maybe the biogas people aren't tougher than these cannibals. I do need to run away. But I just feel like it was about them, and it's kind of disappointing that, I don't know, the High Priestess lives, right? Like, she's alive. We don't know what happened to her. We don't know what really happened to him. I mean, jump to the end, but like, I feel like maybe because they were planning a sequel, or maybe Eli Roth is just not a great writer, he doesn't totally deliver on all that his setup promised.
Even the headhunter just gets shot. Like, yeah, if these are your villains of the film, your slashers, your monsters, I guess you want some gratuitous death, and you don't really get that.
Except we're supposed to side with them, I guess, from the ending of this film. We're supposed to be pro-cannibal and anti-industrialist.
No. She sides with them because it's about getting Alejandro never freed, right?
No, she sides with them to protect tribal culture, and
no,
that is what Eli Roth says.
That's how I took it too.
Well, whatever Eli Roth says, the way I read it is, I don't want people to know that I lied and said I left him behind.
No, I think she's being just as Machiavellian as Alejandro here, and maybe she realizes, like, that tribe was pushed to do that, and even if they practice this awful thing that she wants banned forever, she still protects them because she realizes they're still in the right.
No, think about it. If they push forward and get that, then they're going to find him.
He's going to be eaten by that point. He's out of the picture.
They're seconds away from finding and saving him, and she wants him, A, not to escape, and B, not for anyone to find out that she knew he was still alive and left him. So protecting the tribe, protecting that secret is also protecting her own.
All I'll say is I thought there would be one either end movie scene or mid-credit, end-credit joke scene of Alejandro being eaten. I just assumed he was dead because he got left there.
Yeah, and I took it in the movie the same way you did, Jacob. She was protecting the cause she went down there for. She went down there to save a tribe from industrialization, and she went back, and if she said that they were cannibals, then the industrialists would move straight forward, but she was able to frame it like the industrialists slaughtered peaceful tribal people, and so she lied to protect the cause above herself.
And to hurt Alejandro, because Alejandro was with the mercenaries.
Sure, that might be in it, but I don't think it was because she thought she was going to get found out.
There's that element to it, but I also just think that the battle between them was that she chose one side and he chose the other. The whole issue in the end was about them. The way I read this is, forget the politics, this is a battle of the sexes. And the movie definitely can be read that way. But disappointingly, not enough. I mean, again, I feel like so much of the metaphors, the flute gets dropped, the puma or the jaguar.
The jaguar, yeah.
Yeah. They had a line about saying that they drag people away because of their sin.
It doesn't drag anyone to hell, yeah.
Did they run out of money? Did they rewrite themselves? Did they film it and say it doesn't look good enough? All I know is that there is a lot of great setup that doesn't turn into a great climax.
I agree, and I'm going to blame it on writing just in general, because I feel like that's not this movie's strong suit overall. You see a lot of motifs in it, Stuart, that I don't even give it credit for having that much.
I do like, again, if you're just studying this as a take on classic horror, I love it was just a dream bit. You always got to have that, right? Jason Voorhees popping out of the lake and nope, that was just a dream, or was it? We have her returning to campus life. trying to be a normal student again, telling her father and the university, again, what they would want to know, what she wants to be the truth and what protects her. But secretly, she's thinking about Alejandro running up to her and ripping into his flesh.
Those teeth are hysterical looking. I laughed out loud when I first saw them. They're like out of a bad vampire film.
Trilogy of Terror is what I was thinking about. But yes, I love them. I don't know whether you're laughing in derision, but I love that they did it.
I'm laughing because it looks cheap, but I think it's supposed to look cheap and I'm supposed to laugh at it.
Okay, so you're enjoying it.
Yeah. What I don't enjoy is this mid-credits stinger that feels unnecessary, though, where I'm guessing that they just did a quick voiceover with random actress voicing Alejandro's sister, and because they were dating at the time, they got Justine to do voiceover, and there's a satellite photo of Alejandro, and he's in makeup like a headhunter.
Well, I want to point something out. This thing is not coming out just under the banner of Universal. That's the first thing we see. But I also saw Blumhouse, and not just any old Blumhouse, Blumhouse Tilt. What the hell is Blumhouse Tilt? I looked it up, and apparently they were trying to start a production wing where things could be made on multi-platform releases. Or to put it another way, remember how we take a hit movie and then make cheap, straight-to-tape kind of stuff? Obviously, Eli Roth would not come back to make Green Inferno 2, but he probably has an intern that really wants to be a director, and sure, you could go make that shitty sequel that will be streaming on some nothing in a week for $50 budget.
Well, what actually happened is Blumhouse bought this from Worldview. Worldview had already greenlit a sequel that Eli Roth himself was going to do. And when Worldview went bankrupt, Blumhouse bought this and put it out under the new Blumhouse Tilt banner. But Blumhouse was not involved in the production of this in any way. They just bought it from a failing company.
Yeah, be that as it may, my point is Blumhouse saw that there was money to be made smaller. What would come next would not be theatrical. And I don't know, I'd be very skeptical about Eli Roth making a sequel, but he did direct Hostel 2.
And he's doing Thanksgiving 2.
Okay, so maybe he doesn't give up and pass it off to the intern. But it wouldn't have the same, it didn't have any impact anyway. But they wouldn't roll it out in the same way. It would be my prediction, that it would be not unlike those Death Race movies that we watched. First one theatrical, the next one just keeps popping up wherever you find straight-to-tape entertainment.
Well, I think had Worldview stayed, that sequel would have happened. But Blumhouse putting this out and seeing how the box office was, there was not an appetite for more cannibal films.
Yeah, it's not a good hook. Who cares? Again, if they had really played up Alejandro versus Justine, if that was the battle, and it's halfway there, then maybe we would want to see a face-off where she goes back to kill him, and with a woman who's trying to save him. I don't know. They didn't set that up. I don't think it feels like a tag to a movie we didn't watch. I don't think anyone, even if this movie had been a bigger box office success, it's hard to imagine that people would have been asking for more of that.
Well, are you guys asking for more of this? Jacob Stewart, do you recommend The Green Inferno? Jacob.
When I talked about Cannibal Holocaust, I compared it to extreme metal, like Cannibal Corpse or Slayer, like stuff that I understand is not for everybody. And I guess my weird music analogy, and I don't know a whole lot about metal, but this feels, have you guys heard of Baby Metal? This J-pop metal band with all these Japanese female singers, and it's really brutal and really cute too, because it's J-pop, and like, Stuart, you said safe space. This feels like the safe space, like more consumer-friendly cannibal movie out of all the ones I've seen. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. One, no animals are being hurt. That's a great improvement here. And I still think even, having to get that R rating from the MPA, it still pushes the violence and the gore more than I think a lot of mainstream audiences are used to. And so if you want to dip your toe into that extreme gore fetish type thing to see if it's for you, maybe this is a better place to start than Cannibal Holocaust or any of those Italian ones. My problem with this one, I'm kind of on the line because I think it does great. With all the stuff you want in a cannibal film, I think this is going to hit all those notes. And then, yeah, there's the writing where I'm just not taken in as much by this story. I don't care about it. Yeah, it's Eli Roth doing his edgelord humor and, ooh, look at these activists, not as smart as they think they are. Again, college is the time to try that stuff out. It's not all going to be as extreme as Green Inferno. You're not going to end up in the Peruvian jungles being shot at by militias.
I want young people to care about the world. Yeah, it's not a sin to be socially conscious.
Yes. And so it's just thing like Alejandro, the fact that like he's just kind of saved for a sequel, that feels a little unsatisfying. Yeah, just the relationship. Why doesn't he ever pretend to be in love with Justine and all of that stuff? All the stuff you those character moments you want, I feel are lacking. And instead you get, again, that gore and that juvenile Eli Roth diarrhea and jerking off type humor. And sometimes it really pays off. Like I said, with that marijuana scene, that's the best joke. The second best joke was, yeah, seeing everyone's Twitter handles in those closing credits. Has the world changed since this film has come out? Like, I don't even have that app on my phone.
Like, there's no Twitter anymore. It's X.
Yeah, there's no Twitter. It's a garbage site now. I don't even use it. Barely ever go to it unless I click on a link that takes me there. So, look, I'm taken in. I enjoyed the gore stuff. The stuff that I would go for a cannibal movie to see, like, that's all here. I think it's a friendlier version, a safe space version, as Stuart called it. I'm going to give it a weak recommend because, yeah, again, that story's not there, but I think it delivers on what you're going to see a cannibal movie for, and that stuff was very satisfying. So a weak recommend for Green Inferno.
Stuart.
First and foremost, I guess I need to go put it out there. I guess I don't even know that I want a cannibal movie. I don't have a particular expectation in going into one about what I need it to do or feel like or be. I know I did not enjoy Cannibal Holocaust. And I know I don't want to watch snuff movies. So the fact that this is a manufactured shock comedy is perfectly fine for me. I think Eli Roth has made a good Eli Roth movie. He has done what he does in a way that is recommendable if you like what he does. The pain of this movie for me is that sometimes I see it and I see Midsummer. I see Ari Aster. I see the sexual politics. I see all the ideas and motifs and themes and think, wow, there's a great movie in here, and I don't get a great movie. I get a perfectly fine splatterfest when he really could have had next level, truly psychologically disturbing horror on his hands. The tragedy is that Eli Roth doesn't ask more of himself. But if you like what he does, and I did like Thanksgiving, I don't think this one is quite as good, but it's similar. I think it's a pretty good time and a solid recommend.
And I kind of echo what you guys said in your recommends. I mean, I've been on a long journey through cannibal films at this point. I've seen too many cannibal films, and they really, I think, are a time capsule that could only have originated when they did. After the Vietnam War, and special effects were really coming to the fore in horror films. And so what does it mean when someone not only looks back on that phenomenon 30 years later, but tries to introduce it to a new generation of horror fans? And the result is the least shocking cannibal film I've seen. Not one animal is hurt in this film. Not even an ant, not a tarantula. Now, this is a good thing for me as a viewer. I hate to see animal violence. I was disgusted by it. But not having it lessens the pure shock grindhouse value of the originals. So we turn to human violence for shock and for fun, and it does have that. But most of it has the slick effects that just keep making me think more of Hostel than Cannibal Ferox or Last Cannibal World. You have college students out of the country getting in way over their heads, about to be killed. Hostel and Green Inferno are really similar. But I would say Hostel has the better eyeball terror scene, because I could actually see what happened in it.
But you don't want to see that.
But I do, it just grosses me out.
Yeah, you do. You do. I hear you saying, I come to, torture porn to be tortured. Don't treat me nice. Don't put on the kid gloves.
And this film didn't shock except for the sexual assault virginity test and the implications of female genital mutilation. And please understand, I don't want those scenes to be more graphic. I don't want more assault in the films. Again, with the animal violence, all the sexual assault was just awful in those old cannibal films. But it was just filmed so confusingly here Roth wants to push the envelope, and it seems like a desperate way to do it, and yet it doesn't actually go there. And the 70s and 80s cannibal films would have gone there. But Green Inferno isn't without its fun. Jonah's death is wonderfully, gleefully gory. The airplane crash is exciting and well filmed. It's the highlight of the film. And honestly, of all the cannibal films I've watched, Green Inferno's probably my favorite, simply because it is so fake. Because no animals are harmed. Because it does have kids' gloves. And the acting is a cut above any of the Italian cannibal films I watched.
I mean, they have actors.
Yes. But this is a safe cannibal movie, sanitized for a modern and mostly American audience.
Definitely not Italians. They're too scared of this one.
What has happened to Italy? But being the best of a bad lot doesn't instantly get a recommend. I'm on the borderline with this one because of the pluses I mentioned, but I really wonder what this film has to offer since it does shy away from the extremism of its predecessors. I mean, this feels like the shallow end of the pool. If you're cannibal curious, start here to see if you want to go further, but I don't see a lot in the cannibal genre as a whole, or this film in specific, that makes it worth your time. It's all shock with little plot. So I'm giving this a weak not recommend. I almost recommend it for the scenes I mentioned, but it's really not enjoyable. Watching it the second time really solidified for me this is a not recommend of a movie.
Wow, I'm totally shocked. I thought it was easily entertaining, and I thought we would all have a pretty good time, but yes, find things lacking in it. I hear all your complaint, but I'm surprised to hear you say it was unpleasurable.
I know, you're usually saying, I wish there was more gore in this. I wish there was this. Maybe you want more than just gore, though.
Yeah, I do. I want more than those Italian cannibal films gave me, and that was a lot of gore and a lot of rape and a lot of animal mutilation. No, give me story and characters and pacing, and let me know what's going on. If I hadn't had to rewind at one point to be like, is that an eye being gouged out, and then pause for Wikipedia, I might be more forgiving of this film, but I feel like Roth is just a bad storyteller here. I feel like this is lazy and borderline racist with its portrayal of Central Americans. I didn't enjoy the film. I don't enjoy any of the cannibal films. There's not a single cannibal film I have watched in the past month that I would give a recommend to.
And again, you keep bringing up the other ones, and that's, yes, this thing takes visual cues from those movies, but it's an entirely different experience to watch Cannibal Holocaust. We've had that show. Again, I can only conceive of that as some kind of artistic dare. It is performance art. It is not storytelling. Whereas this very clearly is a movie.
It's an attempt at storytelling.
Yes. No, again, and halfway there. Again, I thought that if you just like splatter, this is an easy movie to appreciate. I'm not sure that you'll be satisfied if you're looking for anything more.
So, Sean, what about you? I mean, I know why you picked this. You said this is one of your favorite Eli Roth films. What do you think after hearing our review?
And have you dipped your toes into other cannibal films that we've mentioned or in the genre?
Yeah, I did watch Cannibal Holocaust before this review for the first time. I give that a very solid recommend. It's funny that Arnie said that this doesn't go far enough because Eli Roth, and this is obviously his pretentiousness, but he called this movie his Fitzcarraldo. Like, he's like, movies are too safe now. And, he wanted to film something on location with the tribe that's cut off from the world. And, the cast and crew had to get vaccinated from yellow fever and stuff like that. So he's very proud of, quote unquote, how far he went. But no, it's a popcorn horror movie. This is not in any way like Cannibal Holocaust or anything like that.
Or Fitzcarraldo.
I've never seen that, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's saying is like the director literally kind of went mad on the set of that movie. And the fact that they didn't go to a soundstage, Arnie, you at least have to admit this, that they really went to the jungle. They really found a tribe that had not been photographed. They pushed that envelope at the very least. I could give the movie credit for that.
Yeah, the cinematography is great in this film.
Yeah, I'll agree. The cinematography is really good. All those other cannibal films went to Central American jungles too. I'm not going to praise Eli Roth so much for that, but the movie looks good. Absolutely, except for those ants.
Yeah, but I think some, just speaking from me, I think I have to give some credit to that because filmmakers aren't doing that anymore. This isn't 1970s Italian cinema.
To be fair, I do want to point out that this is where Eli Roth was making films at this point. He had produced and starred in Aftershock, made in Chile, right before this. He would go on to make Knock Knock down there. He preferred making movies and could make them cheaply down there. So he was already set up in Chile and Peru to film like this. But no, I mean, this movie looks good. I'm not going to take that away from it. It's a weak not recommend. It is not an atrocious film.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand what you're saying. So, yeah, and like I said, this is before, like I said at the beginning of the show, before Thanksgiving, this is the only Eli Roth film I would recommend because I think he finally balanced, for me, the humor and horror in a way that I could get behind. Like I said, I just think Cabin Fever and Hostel, the tone is too extreme in horror and too extreme in comedic for me to get behind it. But this one, for some reason, works.
And again, I want to point out, while Borderlands is out there and we have reviewed it, as of this recording, we have not seen his latest film. So it could be a brilliant masterpiece. It does not look like that from this vantage point right now. I am not predicting that he's made a better movie than Thanksgiving.
Yeah, how many years has it been on the shelf?
Hey, it's a video game movie. I'm guessing it got 3 not recommends, but no, we haven't seen it yet. So thank you, Sean, for picking this movie. Again, best cannibal film I've watched, so it has that going for it.
Still not a recommend, though.
And speaking of leftovers, we got some make goods. We got some films that we promised you that we have not delivered until now, partly because we couldn't. Remember when we were doing The Crow 3 months ago? The new one's finally out. So this Friday, we have our review.
Yeah, I'm still looking forward to it. All the buzz notwithstanding, I'm still hoping we can get a really solid Crow film that even bests the original. We will find out this Friday.
And next Tuesday, we're getting back to Universal Monsters. I don't think we knew in April when Abigail came out.
The ballerina movie?
Yeah, right. We knew she was a vampire. We didn't have it confirmed that Universal Pictures had sanctioned radio silence to remake Dracula's Daughter, or at least that's what they're claiming now. So we're going to pick that up as part of our Dracula series that we covered when we did Renfield and Bela Lugosi and Frank Langella and all of that. We're picking up that spring, I guess, what would we call that? Mild hit? Cult film? Curiosity? The ballerina vampire movie, Abigail, next Tuesday.
So thank you in advance for your support of our show. If you're joining us for The Crow this Friday, it is your support and support from people like Sean here on the call that allow us to keep podcasting week after week. So thank you for listening to Now Playing. Jacob, Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, thanks for coming. I mean it.
Justin, let me out of here. Please let me out of here.
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
You know how many people are gonna join us after this?
And a special thank you to Sean Ray for his amazing support of Now Playing, and for picking The Green Inferno for our hosts to review.
Isn't it weird that that's the guy who's paying for everything?
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
Don't think. Act.
And you can join our Podbean crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews available for a one-time contribution.
Nobody forced you to join us. And nobody's forcing you now.
You can also compare notes with us on Letterboxd. Go to letterboxd.com/nowplaying to see what our hosts are watching when we're not recording podcasts. And follow Now Playing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel.
We're trending! We're fucking trending worldwide!
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
Yeah, seriously. Let me get some sleep up in this bitch.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Who the fuck are you, man?
Now Playing is edited by Santiago and Arnie.
Chop chop, we don't have all day.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
Well, what do you want me to say?
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
I think you're 100% wrong.
I think you're 100% whore.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein.
My father's a lawyer at the UN. Maybe he could get involved somehow.
All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
You need every lawyer in the UN to stop it.
Now playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2024, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
You can leave now.